it is time. Welcome to Driving Environments. I will be your instructor today. Ooh, that sounds all official. Hey! So a lot of this is right back to basics again. A lot of this is coming from the SDE classroom curriculum. So back to basics a little bit. So nighttime driving. You do want to make sure you have clean windshield and lights. That way it helps reduce the glare and lets you see a little further. I know the bus I was in this morning, those headlights, not the best. High beams. Use your high beams when possible.
Really? Nobody can use your high beams on these cars here.
I said when possible.
Okay.
I use my high beams all the time and no one ever flashes me.
That is possible. Idaho code says within 500 feet of an oncoming vehicle or 200 feet approaching from the rear, you're supposed to dim your high beams. You can also help, since it increases the amount of light going out, looking for the eye glare of wildlife on the side of the road, so you know if there's a deer hanging out on the side of the road. Oncoming traffic as well. Look for the legs of animals going across the glare of the lights in front of you. Fatigue. 20% of all accidents are caused by fatigue. So make sure you're staying within your hours of service and getting well rested for your work day. A good night's sleep. No consuming alcohol within 8 hours of work. Speed and following distance. Increase your following distance at night. Speed adjustment, they always say you're never supposed to outdrive your headlights. That's like probably 35. So, but just increase that following distance, paying attention to the vehicles in front of you, what's going around. Interior lighting. So our handbook does say we're supposed to use the interior rear road dome light when we have students on board. If it bothers your eyes, you can drive without it, which is fine. I just recommend that you, and suggest that you turn on lights when students are loaded so you can make sure they sit all the way down before you start driving. Also with interior lighting, all the buses I've been in, you can adjust the brightness of the lights on the controls, so that way it's not super glaring in your face. I figured that one out in the Subaru the other day because that was bright.
You know, on that, like make comment on that speed. Most rear-end accidents are from the driver driving too fast, and so the car behind him is confident, and then that car stops, and he's going too fast. The other guy doesn't have time to react.
Oh yeah. Wildlife, they tend to be more active at night and those dusk and dawn hours, the golden hour. So watch for, like I said, the eye shine on the side of the road is a good thing to watch for. Leg movement and oncoming traffic lights. So a lot of times you can see the hooves or the feet coming across the road. Oncoming vehicles, don't stare at the lights. Don't be that deer in the headlights. I find myself doing that. If I start staring at them, then it's like, and it messes up your night vision. Try to look at that outside fog line's a good place to look. Take care of your eyes. Make sure you're getting your eyes checked if you feel the need. If you have a license that requires you to have eyeglasses when driving, wear your eyeglasses when driving. Did you sign? Minimize distractions. So we want to do our best to minimize those distractions. Maybe think about turning not the two-way radio down, but the AM/FM radio down, so you don't have that music kind of distracting your mind. There's a lot more going on, a lot we have to pay attention to in that nighttime scenario, and staying focused on the driving task. Rural driving. Pass carefully. So the first question I always ask myself about passing another car is, do I need to? And most of the time the answer is no. So this is talking about roads like Colburn, the 2-lane roads, 1 lane each direction that have dashed yellows. Most of the time in a bus, because we can never exceed the speed limit, the posted speed limit, we're not going to be able to pass a vehicle. Maybe some slow farm equipment, stuff like that. But if you are passing, you do need to stay back until it's time to pass. Check your mirrors for traffic, signal to the left, pass the vehicle, check your mirrors, signal back to the right and come back. And another consideration too about checking your mirrors, you might be wanting to pass that slow vehicle in front of you. I can guarantee there's probably at least 5 cars behind you that are all like, man, I need to buy this slow bus. So watch out for that. As soon as those passing lanes come, you're gonna start getting a bunch of cars swinging out and trying to get past you.
It's really fun when they speed around you and then they go 5 or 10 miles an hour into the speed limit and they get in front of you.
Yeah.
I was doing the speed limit.
Yeah. So most speed limits in rural areas are higher. We never want to exceed that posted speed limit. Traction conditions can also vary from one road to another, where it's loose gravel, packed gravel, paved, chip seal. Can all change the amount of traction. So you need to also stay aware of the position of the bus on the roadway, so we always want to travel in our right-hand lane and not down what I call Idaho middle, center of the road. Hey, Mike.
What the winter center of the road driving and not leaving snowbirds? Got any good ideas on that one?
I drive on the right-hand side of the road.
Oh. If you guys look and you can find like dome of the road at all, don't believe the snow berms around here because you'll be in it.
Oh,
Because they
yeah.
wing them wide.
Yeah, that, and then even when we get those bluebird days, middle of winter, the false shoulders. So, but if you can see the crown of the road, you can put your left-hand tire right near that crown, and you'll be in the right-hand lane of traffic, or in the right-hand lane of the road. So. Road hazards. Oh, loading, unloading. I didn't really talk about that. Again, 200 feet, 8 to 10 seconds is when we're turning on our amber lights. So on a 45-mile-per-hour road, that's more than 200 feet. You want good 8 to 10 seconds of your ambers running. Stop 15 feet away from the students. So like this morning, Ponderay City Hall, the kids were pretty much standing in the street. So I turned around the corner from the 4-way stop. I couldn't even complete the turn, and I had to stop because I was already 15 feet away from the kids. So I did let them know, hey, next time stand back up off the road, but we'll see how that goes.
I have a little question. So when you're on 95 and you're turning on to Bees, Humberg, right, you can use that soft lane, right?
Yeah, there's a right-hand turn lane there.
Yeah, okay.
So some places you can use the shoulder to make a right-hand turn, and that's legal. But there's other places where that can create its own problem. The only one I can really think of is Old Highway out past Coburn Culver, because that road, when you're taking that right-hand lane coming back from the Clark Fork direction, that road comes back this way, and if you take the shoulder and try and make that turn, you're making it very difficult and challenging. So a lot of times I stay right in my lane of travel, slow down, make the turn.
Okay.
But most places I'm using the shoulder best I can. So that way it allows, because you know how the general motoring public is, they're going to want to get around you.
Right.
And it just gives them a little bit more opportunity to do that. Of course, you also got to be careful of tail swinging when you start doing that, because the tail's going to swing out, and if they're not aware of it. So there's a lot going on. So, loading, unloading 15 feet away, bus in neutral, open the door, motion the kids on. We use that count on, count away, so you should know how many kids are out there as you're pulling up. Make sure that many get on. Same thing with getting off. In the unloading procedure, kids should not be checking their mailboxes while you're at the stop. So they should be walking 15 feet off the roadway away from the bus, and then once you leave, they can go dance in the street if they want. So, but they should not be checking their mailboxes before they cross or anything like that. Road hazards, bicycles, especially up in Selly Valley, spring and fall time. Roadies up there riding around. Wildlife, both domesticated and wild. So horses, we have open range areas that we drive through. So you might get, we had a bus hit a horse a few years ago.
Yeah, that was awful.
I bet it was.
A horse?
Oh yeah, that was out on River Road. And Route 33 was driving around a corner and this horse was kind of in the dark shadow of a tree. And just walked out onto the road right in front of him, just boom, right in front.
Oh, yeah, when I was doing Route 8 the other day, it's open range up there by the Woods place, Western Pleasure. And there was cows out in the road back into the field. But it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
slow down and just kind of figure it out. And then he was like, just come on by. Oh no, it was horses. It wasn't cows. That's why I almost came to a stop.
City boy.
Because you guys, well, no. You never know. Like cows are pretty like chill. They're big. Horses, not so much.
And this was,
Well, it depends on the horse too.
yeah, it was really sad. So just, like you said, just be,
Yeah.
there was nothing the driver could have done. The horse was in a dark shadow, and it just stepped out onto the road right as it was coming around that corner. And
So were you liable to pay for that horse?
we were,
Oh.
yeah, because it's open range. The owner did not charge us anything. It was actually a former principal of the district who owned the horse, so.
Lucky.
Yeah, they were very understanding, but it was still a sad thing. They'd had that horse for like 20 years or something. I mean,
Yeah, I've had out on River Road, I've had cows break through fencing, and I've watched them break through the fencing like right in front of me and come out on the road. So, and that can happen anywhere where we have the rural areas. Yes.
I got one question on the loading, unloading. I've got a stop on Highway 200, it's a pull-off, right after the bridge. And so, I'm not 15 feet in front of him, he's 15 feet behind me, and he gets on the bus.
Right, what bridge? Coming back to town?
Yeah, coming back into town.
Oh, right after the bridge where
Yeah,
I've always done that as an 8-way.
an 8-way?
Yeah, because in that the pull off in that driveway is pretty. If it's the
I've
one
always-
I'm thinking of.
I was done it as a pull-off, I pull off.
is there plenty of room to pull off?
Yeah, there's plenty of room to pull off and it's paved,
I might be thinking of a different stop.
Right before the slough?
right after the slough. As you're coming into town, it's right after
Yeah.
the slough.
That little house right there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I did a pull off one time, but the reason why I stopped doing that the few times I've done it is because half the time that kid's right where you need to be to pull off. So I'm like,
Yeah, he's always up in
Okay.
the yard,
Right.
and so he's good. I watch my mirror and I open the door and he comes out of the yard and comes in the bus. But
yeah, the biggest thing, the reason for the 15 feet, those of you who've driven in snow and other conditions like that, buses are pretty, at least from my experience, you come to that stop and then there's always that little bit of before you settle into place. And that's what we're avoiding. We're also trying to keep the kids out of that danger zone. So they teach, 10 feet around in the schools is what they teach for that danger zone. We're kind of extending that a little bit more and just saying, stay away from the bus
Oh,
until
yeah,
I'm at a
yeah.
stop. So that's fine as long as he's back that 15 feet.
okay.
So, yeah, I've usually done an 8-way there.
It's so dangerous because you got this
Yeah, well, it is.
two lanes coming into one right there.
Yeah, and then you go across the bridge and it's right there and
Yeah.
traffic's coming out. But I know, yeah,
We-
no, if you
we-
do,
We've tried to take all the 8-ways off the highways,
right,
and so,
yeah.
you
No,
know,
if you're doing good and getting off the highway, that's a
Yeah.
great way to do it. It's safer.
yeah, we want to be off the highway. There's just so much more traffic now, and it's just not worth it to just try to stop highway traffic.
Yeah, 34 is about the only route that I truly know of that really has 8-ways on the
I have one.
highways.
New Highway 200. In
Oh.
between
Yes,
Old Highway and.
that's because there's nowhere to pull off.
Right.
The
Correct.
driveway's too small.
That's an 8-way
It is an 8-way.
on 200, huh?
Yeah, but he hasn't ridden in a while, has he?
She drives it 4 or 5 days and then she's off for a week because she
Oh.
lives with 2 different
Oh,
parents.
Who
okay.
picks up the kid in the morning from north side, coming out of north side when you turn right on the highway?
It's Gene's route.
Jeans
I
are
ran
up.
it for a while.
Is she?
That was an 8-way on the highway.
Yeah, I know that's how Donna used to do that back when Donna was doing that route.
Fingers.
Road surface, again, gravel paved, and even between your gravel surfaces, there's gonna be differences between freshly graded, hard pack, potholes, washboard, all things to consider when driving out there. The edges of those gravel roads can also be very soft, so once you kind of catch a tire in there, it just wants to pull you in. Turns should be completed with care. What we try to do is brake before going into the turn, make the turn, and then accelerate coming out. So again, like I said last month, talking about dynamically, vehicles can only do 3 things: accelerate, turn, or brake. Try to avoid doing all of them together at the same time if you can. So the thing about turning too, and this comes from when I was doing Route 5 up in the valley, had a parent complain about their kid getting tossed around on the bus, and it really made me examine my driving habits. I was going around corners too fast. It wasn't excessive, it wasn't dangerous for the vehicle, but for passenger comfort, the little kids were just getting tossed around. And so now I just go nice and slow around a corner and then accelerate after making that turn. Curves. So the condition of the road surface, the amount of tread, the angling of the road can all play into the factors of how we take our curves. Slow around a corner is always going to be safest. Caution signs, so when you come across those yellow caution signs with speeds, remember those are based for cars in good conditions, not necessarily a 40-foot bus on a roadway. So if you're new to an area, you might want to slow down a little bit more beyond what that caution sign is telling you to do. When traveling up and down hills, make sure you do stay to the right of the road, especially near the crest, because you're more than likely going to encounter a car coming up, driving the center of the road. I know
Route 30 is a good example of curves and hills, because it's like the curviest and hilliest route we have.
yeah, there was one when Anita went out for her shoulder.
Oh, that was Talachi.
Yeah, in Talachi, there was a car I would meet every morning kind of near Mirror Lake. Coming around the corner, he would be either in the center of the road or in my lane. And so eventually, after doing that for a week and having like a, you know, I finally just said, you know what, I slowed down earlier in the route, and now we met on the straightaway. So it wasn't around the blind corner.
You know, Duford, after they paved it, going around those corners, it didn't widen around the corners, and so you'll catch a car every once in a while. You're clear over to the side, but yet.
Yeah.
Talking about just east of where I live?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't they post that down to 25 now or something?
It's 25, but, you know,
I think it used to be 35 all through there, wasn't it?
it's 20, 25.
It's 25 now, but before they paved it, I believe it was always posted 35.
No, it's always been 25 there, since I've had it, but.
Oh, that's why the finish line.
There you go. Yeah. Remember, if you break down on a hill with putting out the triangles, put out a triangle up over the crest of the hill or around that corner to kind of indicate to traffic coming, hey, pay attention, there's something around this corner over the crest of the hill.
Where are your best?
Safety, but
Mine's at home because I haven't biked to work lately. Because I was wearing it with my bike. That's the only time I've worn it, is biking to work in the morning, because it's really bright. So a lot of those same normal emergency situations that occur anywhere can occur in those rural environments. Vehicle collisions, fires. Livestock can be a little bit more unique to rural areas. One of the things about emergency situations, rerouting can be a little bit more challenging. So unlike here in town where you've got city blocks that we can go around, sometimes you might have to go a little bit further out of the way to reroute. So I encourage you to learn the public roadways around your route. So if something happens and you need to reroute, you kind of know where you can go. Also, learning some of the roads for the other routes at your schools is helpful. So like, if you're at Northside and Rapid Lightning, if he could kind of know how like Upper Gold works a little bit, it's helpful. So if Angie breaks down, or Route 8, he can help and fill in. I've done that years ago when I was on 21. You had a breakdown at the fire station, and I didn't know where I was going up Blacktail. I just remember you telling me, like, if you get up there and you feel like you're in the wrong place, you're probably in the right place.
Sounds like
Come back out and
And yeah, and that's what it is. You get up on the top of Blacktail and you feel like you're in the wrong place, but it is the right place. That stands out all these years later. So, because that was one I was actually nervous about, because I'm like, dude, I don't know where I'm going. And we didn't have bus ride. It was all paper logs. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
But I survived. Amazingly. Urban driving. Speeds. Never exceed posted speed limit. Why does it say 65? We're not gonna do 65 in a city or in urban areas. Speeds on most urban roads, city of Sandpoint's 25 unless posted otherwise. There's a few roads that are 35, Boyer, Baldy. That's all I can think of at the moment. Loading, unloading, again, it's those same rules, 200 feet before. You want to turn those lights on, get the yellows going, stop 15 feet away, bus in neutral, open the door, motion those kids on the bus, using the count on, count away techniques. Intersections and traffic control. So it does take longer for a bus to clear an intersection, so that's something to keep in mind. Don't be trying to race those yellow lights. If you see the yellow and you can stop safely, that's what you should do. If it's going to be one where it's like slamming on the brakes and all the kids are going to break their noses, then yeah, you're probably going to go through that intersection. But it can take us 8 to 10 seconds to clear an intersection. So a lot longer than a car. And another thing too is we can't go into an intersection until we can clear it all the way. So you've got to have that 40 feet on the other side of the intersection before you can enter it. So no prepping left-hand turns where you pull into the center of the intersection and wait. We should be sitting back before the intersection, and when it's clear, we can go through.
Also, on turning on intersections, those right turns can be really super tight. I experienced that yesterday off of Lincoln and Pine. So that's a tight right turn, and I hadn't done it in a while, and so when I was making that right turn, there was a car coming up, and I'm trying to make a right, and you really almost have to get a little bit into that oncoming lane, and I couldn't because I got a car coming, so I had to just cut it and take it slow, and of course that back tire hit that thing and bumped my bus a little bit, and I was like, dang it. So you just, you know, I like to think I'm a good driver, but even those tight intersections put you off guard.
That's when I take trainees through there sometimes just to make them hit a curve.
Yeah, well, that's a good one to do it at.
Well, yeah. So there are intersections where you might hit a curve a little bit in that case, and that's fine. And that's why having the slow speed on your corners, it's helpful, so you're not,
Rocking that bus.
yeah, really bad. That one, like I've learned, and the one coming off now that you come up Pine Street,
I was just
and
gonna
you want
say,
to take
Boyer.
down a right-hand turn on the
There's
Boyer,
all the traffic right there, you almost gotta take that
they
turn.
have that little sidewalk curb section that they,
Yeah.
I wish they had put that in there.
Right, I don't even go
But-
that way no more.
I still go that way. I like that way. I think it's, I don't know, that's just me. But yeah, that can be a hard corner to
Yeah.
make too. Part of that too is realizing the road you're on is one way and you don't have to move very far right. You can just stay right in the center before you make that turn.
But Boyer's real busy, he doesn't back up.
Yeah.
Right turns in Kootenai also. Those are fun.
Yes.
Because there's no space.
There's no space and you a lot of times now you have to go into the center turn lane.
And what happens is if you take that turn and it's super tight, and if your bus dips into the ditch a little bit, it'll grab your chain, your instant chain, and it will either dig in the concrete or rip off your chain. One of the two. So I don't know that from personal experience. But I do know that.
Were you here when we had a bus go in one of those ditches?
Yeah.
Or I wasn't paying attention
No,
at
I
the time.
wasn't Bill.
Traffic control, any sign, signal marking, or device placed or erected by authority of a public body for the purpose of regulating traffic, just so we know what a traffic control device is. One of the things, we can't do 8-way stops in a controlled intersection. So we shouldn't be doing an 8-way stop in the middle of, like 5th and Cedar. In the middle of that intersection, should not, the 8-way stop should be before the intersection or after. Seems pretty obvious, but
That would be chaos.
I have it in my notes. Again, curves and turning, we kind of hit on this a little bit. Slow is best, always. It's helping, especially with the little kids, flailing around the seats. If you do accidentally or have to know, hey, I'm gonna have to ride that curb a little bit, it's better to do it slow than it is faster. Yeah.
Well, there's, this morning I was going down Colton Culver just before the Highway 200. And I was slowing down perfect, you know, and I get up and I put my foot on the brake and it just kept going. So there's a lot of ice on the road.
Put it in neutral, and that rears won't keep driving him. learned that the hard
Yeah,
way.
well, it was kinda freaked me out
Yeah.
because I was going slow,
Yeah.
but it still kept going.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You were slick get today.
Even a Thomas
Yeah,
bus,
there
they
was
put the
definitely-
brakes on.
yeah, put it neutral.
Well, yeah, the Thomas bus, they put brakes on.
Oh, it does, huh?
Yeah,
In neutral?
yeah.
I've used my chain.
That's right, I gotta try that in the Thomas bus, because you've mentioned that before, and I
Yeah.
always forget to go test. Alleys and crosswalks, be mindful of people and cars coming out of those alleys and crosswalks. Pedestrians do have the right of way in a crosswalk, so before you cross them, make sure it's clear.
And Sandpoint's a walking town.
No, it's a train town.
I know.
Who said that years ago? Somebody said that years ago, and it's still in my head, just like Blacktail, still in my head somewhere. And I don't know who said that one. Oh, lane changes. Again, you want to do a check signs and markings to make sure it is okay to change lanes. White solid lines, we're not supposed to be crossing across. Watch for emerging traffic, so people coming out of their driveways, businesses, other places. You do want to signal 3 to 4 seconds, 100 feet before your lane change. And then cancel the lane signal after changing lanes.
People are still coming out of the high school and blocking traffic,
Yeah.
buses.
Oh.
I mean, they're halfway in the middle, they're just sitting there, instead of waiting for for it to clear out and then go, but they're blocking.
Yeah,
That's,
the high school exit's a poor design, unfortunately.
buses, anyway.
Especially for the number of buses we put through there. And then just all the other traffic in general. But yeah, we shouldn't be pulling out until we can clear all the way through. And we want to try and maintain the flow of traffic. So here's the thing, if you're pulling out and you want to make that left-hand turn at the highway to go down to Boyer, and now you're blocking that right-hand lane, all that traffic behind the bus is going to back up even more than allowing that right-hand turn traffic to come out. And then we can only get maybe 2 buses out there at a time, which sucks. But hey, remember, you guys get paid by the hour. So, say thank you for the extra, whatever it works out to
2
be.
minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes is 2 minutes. You get paid for all of it, so it's all good. Construction.
Depends what kind of crowd you have on your bus.
What? Huh?
Depends what kind of crowd you have on your bus.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's all road
Too long.
it is. Not all buses are made the same. And not all bus
For
drivers.
drivers.
Huh? Or drivers, that's what I was saying too. Yeah, construction zones, you want to watch for those narrow lanes, sharp turns, flaggers, so you have to pay attention to those people controlling traffic and listen to what they do. Other things to watch for, excavators and other vehicles like that have that rear end hanging over when they swing around. They're usually pretty good at making sure the cones aren't going to swing, or that it's not going to swing into where you guys are driving, but watch for that. You never know who
Are
sets it.
flaggers authorized to flag you through a railroad crossing?
No.
No, only railroad personnel and
And
law enforcement.
I didn't think so, right? I thought, I was like, wait a minute here.
Yeah. So I've been in construction zones in the middle with railroad crossings. I've never had one flag me through, but they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
Was it a flag,
So when
Yeah.
they're, the old dump, when they're
Yeah.
planting the trees and doing all kinds of stuff, remember that? They were
You
like
were
right there, but I would still stop
It's
doing
a
my thing and
hazardous
go.
waste site.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what they gotta do is they dug out as much of that hazardous waste as they could, and then they have to plant vegetation there to try to filter out the rest of it for a certain amount of time.
That's what a head scratcher.
Yep,
All dump.
yeah.
and
Because
then they'll put up low-income housing.
What year did you?
Yeah.
Hey, one.
They had a real fancy trenching tool.
Well, it wasn't, they weren't dumping it, what they were doing, they were treating wood there.
Oh.
And so there was a wood treatment place and the chemicals got into the ground. And of course, in the 60s and 70s, nobody cared.
Right.
In 2024,
Yeah,
we do.
that big thing they brought in was pretty.
I'm a heavy equipment specialist, and I've never seen that trench. There's a one-stop trench tool, they're dragging it, and they're loading and filling back.
Yeah, it was impressive.
That was very
But yeah, in the
impressive.
case of that, I think I had one of them try to flag me out, but I
Yeah.
still stopped and did it
Yeah.
because they're just a flagger from whatever flagging company, not trained personnel or law enforcement.
Thanks for
And that
update.
applies-
That's a hand scratch.
And that is for all vehicles,
All that work by
not
trees?
just school buses.
They're rehabilitating the land.
Very good. How long?
dead. You
So,
want dead.
emergencies in urban areas, a lot of times you don't have those big shoulders to pull off onto and get out of the way, but we do want to pull as far to the right as possible to allow for the minimal amount of distraction or interference with normal traffic. Also, pay attention to where your hospitals, the new EMS building over here on the other side, Ontario and Division. So pay attention to those areas and know where they're at, because you're gonna have a higher incident rate of encountering emergency vehicles there as they leave or come back.
What is that?
Across from the federal building,
What is that new building?
it's the EMS, Bonner County EMS.
Where the
Hospital, huh?
ambulance, it's where the ambulances are housed now.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I mean, the ambulance.
The ambulance.
Okay.
Yeah, they funded that with their budget money that wasn't budgeted for that building. There was a big article in the newspaper the other day about how they were like $1 million short, and they weren't sure how they were gonna pay the EMS crews, and
Oh,
It was all-
that's what that was, I see
Yeah,
that. I didn't
and they got a variance to get like right up to the street and the sidewalk, and that's why now the intersection over there is a four-way stop. Because you cannot see around that corner at all. Highway, freeway driving, look at that traffic, and that school bus. That's, maybe that's I-5. Actually, that's too big to be I-5. I know I-5 better than that. At least in Washington, anyway. So speed is definitely the most important factor and consideration when driving on the freeway. Definitely gonna be higher speeds unless you're bumper to bumper, but you know, this guy's following distance is pretty good, I would say. I don't know exactly what speed he's going at, but looking at the cars, you know, he can fit 3 cars in that distance. So that's,
And they will. Cars will rip them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that lane, right? One just over from the bus, how close those guys are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's, yeah.
They must be stopped.
I hope
Gotta
so.
be California.
I hope so. Again, we never exceed the posted speed limit or 65 miles per hour, whichever one is lower.
Is that a federal law? 'Cause
It's a
my
state
sister
law.
drives- Oh, state law.
State law for school
Because New
bus.
Mexico, she go like 75.
Yeah, it's
That's awesome.
Idaho. Sure.
the buses will go 75, you're not supposed to here.
Yeah.
Well, I've
But
had a
it's
couple
both
It's
separate
a federal
laws.
law, it's not just a state law. Huh?
Yeah,
I've had a
it's
couple
both
buses
state
from
law.
other places down there, just out of Hayden coming up. They were doing like 75, 80. I mean,
What's-
That's reckless.
What's Washington, 60 for buses?
65.
Is it 65?
They put governors on the buses where I came from. Couldn't go over 60.
Make sure you keep that following distance, so again, 4 seconds for 40 feet, 1 extra second for every 10 miles per hour over 40, and then another extra second for any sort of adverse driving condition that exists, whether it's rain, fog, snow, ice, all those. Biggest thing with following distance, honestly, you can never have too much. So if you're 12 seconds behind the car in front of you, that just gives you that much more time to react to whatever happens, whether it's a blown tire, an accident, quick stop, hitting a dog, any of those. Turning, you want to use that proper lane position when turning. There are a few places like going out to Clark Fork on the highway where I'll hug lines to get away from the other lane of traffic, because a lot of times those people are hugging the center line. So I'll hug the fog line just to kind of stay away from them.
For sure.
And in some of the Thomas buses, you get a free back rub when you do that. You do. It has a little, vibrates the seat, turn on
Seat
the
vibrates if you get too close to the fog.
Yeah, and you turn on the heat
How
seat.
does that work in the winter? On the snow, dude?
What, the fog lines? I don't think I've driven one enough in the winter to know.
Yeah, it still works. I don't know how it does it.
It does, huh?
So,
Huh.
where it doesn't really work, gravel roads. And I've had them sometimes where it just starts doing weird things on like gravel roads. So, avoid blocking. Whenever we're making a turn, we always want to be in the outside turn lane. So that way, if somebody's snugged up into the opposing lane of traffic, or vehicles are turning a little bit wider, we can avoid all that. So use the outside turn lane. Then after completing the turn, we want to move into our appropriate lane of travel. Lane changes. correct position of the bus is important for the safety of your passengers. You should be in the middle of your lane, but if you are going to be changing lanes, you do want to signal 3 to 4 seconds, 100 feet.
My stepson got pulled over for that the other day,
Not using turn signal?
not waiting 3 seconds. He turned his turn signal on, but his turn signal went, and,
Does he look like a criminal?
yeah, and the county sheriff pulled him over. Said,
They give him a warning or a ticket?
just a warning.
They were looking.
I think so.
They were fishing.
I think he drives an old ratty Mercury Mountaineer, you know. He's kind of skinny, got a long beard. Like, yeah, those cops thought you were a crook.
Yeah, they were fishing. They were hoping to find something else.
But that was the reason. They said you did not wait 3 seconds before changing lanes.
Yeah, and they're not wrong, because that's what it's required. Oh, I just looked and I had it in here. Oh, controlled steering during your lane change is always important, so you don't need to be like, you know, pulling over in that lane. A nice, steady, controlled pace moved over is the best way to do it. Passing. Again, is it safe? Is it legal? A lot of times on highway driving like this, where you have multiple lanes, passing is going to happen more often. But again, we can never exceed that posted speed limit. So unless somebody's doing 5 below, you're probably not going to be passing a whole lot of cars. Generally, like I know when I'm driving 95 between here and Coeur d'Alene, everyone is passing me, including Terry. Sorry, I had to throw that in there. Bridges and tunnels. Height clearance. Anybody know the height clearance of your bus?
11 foot 6 inches.
11.
No,
Just 11.
Just 11?
Just 11. How about weight?
But you-
Anybody know the weight?
15 tons.
There you go, 15 tons.
Nice.
Oh, 15 tons.
Yep. So 15 tons, some of them are a little under that, but 15 tons is a good round number, same with 11 feet. Gives you a little bit of leeway in that 11 foot, but just go with 11 foot, 15 tons.
Is that a standard height?
That's the
No
standard height plus a
extra
little extra
cover.
because of things like spoilers, emergency roofs and stuff like that. So it's just easier to round it up, because 11 is a lot easier to remember than
Yeah.
10-8.
So that's taking into account hatches and.
Yes.
We have the wind deflectors on the back.
Yeah, the spoilers on the back and all that.
Like 10-6 or.
Yeah, but it's just a good round number to remember, 15 tons, 11 feet. Anybody know the height of Sunnyside? Was that 12 foot? 12.6, something like that? I know your antenna hits.
And here's why you should know. I went on a trip one time, and going south on, I think it was 41, and the teacher goes, "Oh, let's pull into this park, you know, for a picnic." Well, when I pull in there, all of a sudden there's a sign, you probably know the park, it's like 5 tons load limit. I said, "Oh, yeah. I'm not going over that bridge. I lost my license." One, two,
You would have been.
I would have been, yeah. I've got the new bridge.
You're walking.
If you go to,
So then I had to do like a 12-point turn around because I couldn't come back onto the highway, you know?
no, it is important to know. So I do have some stuff in here about that field trip stuff, and we have our bus ride system with a lot of those destinations. It's a guide, it's a tool. You still need to use your eyes and your brain and your knowledge to know things like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm not gonna go across a 5-ton bridge.
Right.
I'm not gonna go under a 10-foot underpass. So,
Yeah.
hills, especially the unmarked ones, like when we all go do the Lewis and Grade, for those of us who travel south, you know, it's got all the big signage, so it makes you aware of a big hill coming up, and Schweitzer even. You know, it says mountain grades, mountain hills. It's those little hills on highways where your speed tends to get away from you. You know, it's happened to me where I've got the cruise set, doing my 4th trip, and I look down, and next thing you know, it's like 70 because I'm just going down this little hill and the bus gets away from you. So be aware of that. And then learning how to see, analyze, and understand traffic flow patterns and signage. So like the whole example of the new removal of signage out there on Highway 200.
And changes, yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to take a few more months before more drivers pick up on it. So, emergency procedures. Again, if you have an emergency on a highway, 4A flashes or turn signal will pull off to the shoulder. Do try, if you can, to get completely off the roadway. If you're not completely out of the lane of travel, you do need to evacuate your bus because you're in an unsafe position. depending on what's going on, whether it's a field trip or route, you'll be calling into dispatch, or in the case of a field trip, more than likely you'll be making a phone call to Kevin, James, Serena, whoever's on duty. If you're going to be broken down for more than 10 minutes, triangles need to go out, and there should be cards in everybody's paperwork that tells you all the distances: 10, 100, 500, 100, 10, 100, and then up to 500, depending on what's going on.
If you're gonna break down, try to be close to where I live.
Or if you're going to break down on a field trip, be near a school district that we're friendly with.
Yeah.
Friendly with.
Coeur d'Alene's a good one because we've helped them out. They'll help us out. Lewiston's a good one. Moscow.
Lakeland, they're all good.
Post
They're all
Falls.
really super.
The ones that we know. If you go to Walla Walla, don't break down in Walla Walla because we don't know anybody down there.
Because they'll transport our students for us while we're covering us. Barry hit a deer last year on a Saturday morning, and he called me. It was early. It was like 7:30. I'm like, "Hey Barry, what's up?" He's like, "Yeah, I hit a deer on the highway. I was on my way to Coeur d'Alene." I'm like, "Oh, where are you?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm like a mile from East Duford." I'm like, "Yes." Like 2 minutes from my house.
No, but the other districts we can usually reach out, and we've helped them, and they've helped us in the past. Whether it's bring out another bus to help at least get the kids to where they're going and stuff like that.
Friday 15 was on a field trip. The bus so cold, it was an overnighter.
Yeah.
Wouldn't start, and the other.
That's when we had that 30 degrees or
Yeah,
minus 30.
Right.
Yeah, and
Is it Boundary County or something?
Boundary County
Took the
County
kids.
was gonna haul our kids, but we ended up getting the bus going, I believe.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, Given when we out there.
Yeah.
Mountain driving, Schweitzer, Blacktail, Lewiston Grade. Speed's always the biggest factor. One of the things that I know my mentor for driving Class A vehicles told me, and I've told many people, is you can go down a hill 1,000 times too slowly, you're only going to go down it 1 time too fast. There's no such thing as going down a hill too slow.
Yeah, there is. Can't put it in first gear because if the bus is going too fast, it'll lock up the rear end.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
You know, the Thomas bus,
But
on the Thomas bus,
Sorry.
it has that button. I don't know what it does, but it slows me down on hills.
that's probably an exhaust brake.
Exhaust brake?
So some of our buses, I like to teach people how to drive a hill without the exhaust brake. So when I first got my Class A and I drove big truck in the lower 48 for a few years or however long, I don't know. My first mentor would not let me use exhaust brake or cruise control for the first 2 weeks. So I had to do everything old school and learn how to go down hills.
You don't want to use exhaust brake in the
No.
winter, right?
No, it'll
So-
spin you wild.
The manufacturer says you're only supposed to use it on dry, clear road conditions. I've used them in other conditions, but it can create more problems than it solves.
So is it an exhaust brake on the Thomas, or is it a reduction in gears?
That I don't know.
Because I noticed the gears go down.
It does that on internationals with the exhaust brake. So the way they're programmed a lot of times, at least on the internationals, I haven't really done it on the Thomases. When you put the exhaust brake on, it will drop you down out of the highest, the 5th gear, and drop you down to 4th. So, and it's just to gear you down, because it's saying, oh, you're going down a hill, or you're doing a highway stop, or whatever the case may be, and it's gonna gear you down and use the exhaust brake on top of that to help slow you down more.
Actually, that's a very good question because when I drive spot bus, I'll put it in tow haul selector to help de-gear me when I'm driving.
Yeah, the tow haul, it keeps from the overdrive in the transmission.
Right.
So.
But it'll gear itself down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's true in your car too. The cars that have that, it helps you, it keeps the transmission from allowing the car push the transmission to go faster. So at least that's my general, I'm not a mechanic, so. Gear choice is always important. Generally for manuals, which we don't drive, they always tell you 1 gear lower than what you go up the hill in. A lot of for here's with automatics, the nice thing is it's a lot easier for us to change gears in the middle of the hill, but you still have to pay attention to your RPMs because you want to blow your engine up. When climbing hills, coolant temp is something you want to watch. So once you start hitting around that, I believe they said 230, did I put it in here? Fan comes on at 210 to 215, so you'll lose some horsepower there. once you get up to about 230 degrees Fahrenheit, your engine's gonna shut down. Or it'll come up with a shutdown engine warning because you're too hot. So pay attention to your coolant temps as they're climbing. It might
Can't you turn on all your heaters too?
You
with
can.
all cold?
Yes, very
And in
good.
the summertime, it might suck, but you can always turn
Yeah.
on, if you have it, the booster pump to keep moving that
Just to
coolant
get all
faster,
that out.
and then turn the heaters on to try and blow some of that heat. It's gonna be very uncomfortable for your passengers, but it'd probably be better than breaking down the side of the road.
Yeah.
We had those drivers here.
Snub braking.
Learn how to put your colors in.
So again, this is the technique that we teach. You can also do feathering on shorter hills, sort of the same, but snub braking is determining your safe downhill speed, rolling to that speed, applying the brakes, and slowing down by 5 miles per hour in 3 to 5 seconds, releasing the brake, rolling back up to the speed, and then repeating. Feathering's the same. Feathering's used more for a short, steep hill, sort of the same technique, but you don't release the brake. You just use less pressure, let it roll back out, and then increase that pressure again and slow down. Yeah, and that's part of why we do that pressure build from 85 to 100 on our brake test, is we want to make sure under normal braking conditions like this, our air compressor is going to work well enough to keep our air pressure up. Brake fade. So smelling brakes is not necessarily a bad thing. That just means your brakes are getting warm, not necessarily bad. Brake fade refers to when you're applying pressure to the brakes, and the same amount of pressure does less braking. So basically your drums are heating up and pulling away from your brake pads or your linings. Smoking brakes are bad.
Yeah.
Are you sure it wasn't Steve?
Yeah, your canister,
It's Steve. It's not smoke.
his canister went out.
Steam.
And his one brake locked up. So smoking brakes are bad. The nice thing is, if you're down at the bottom of the hill and you can roll out, the best thing you can do is keep rolling. Because you're down the hill, if you stop and set the brakes, now you're going to have a hot spot on that drum, and it creates a higher potential for fire. So if you're at the bottom of the hill and you don't have fire, and your brakes are smoking, you can roll out and hope it cools down. But hopefully you don't get to that point. Most of our hills we don't get there. And then air disc brakes. So a lot of our newer buses, did the Thomases come with air disc?
We ordered air disc.
So air disc is a disc brake using air, obviously. Some of the newer buses have them 70, probably from like 72 on, I think, or somewhere in there. They are more resistant to brake fade. So as that rotor heats up, if you think about it, it's expanding towards the pads. So brake fade is less of an issue. They also tend to not overheat because there's better airflow around them. So
We're gonna phase out all of our drum brakes and put disc on
Yeah,
there.
that's wonderful.
the only thing I've noticed about the air disc brakes, they're a little different than drums in how they first grab. I find they tend to be a little bit more grabby at the start. So you want to be, when you make that switch or get into one with them, test them out before you get kids on board. Biggest way to give away to know whether or not you have air disc brakes, if you've never paid attention, is whether or not you have a push rod and slack adjuster, because there is none. And also the canister is mounted 90 degrees differently. So instead of being mounted in line with the wheel, front wheel or rear, it's mounted perpendicular. There's also no S-cam or any of that fun stuff if we get really technical. Field trips. Safety first. Safety is always our top and first priority in the school bus world. Some of the things for driver preparation, you need to know the group, destination, leave times, fueling locations if you're going to have to fuel, rest stop locations, like the Potlatch Hill when you're going to Moscow. That is on the trip login. So for those people who go to like Moscow and Lewiston, you can put in the Potlatch rest area, it'll take you right to it. That's where a lot of our teams like to stop on the way down. Possible food locations as well. The bus ride login is 3522, takes you into that trip driver. I think I'm up to about 120, 125 destinations on there. If at some point you notice it's not on there, and you're about to leave on your trip and you can shoot me a text, and if I can, I'll try and get it in there. It'll take me about 5-10 minutes depending on where I'm at, whether I'm at home, because I've done that on weekends for
I heard
guys.
you for Clark Fork the other day on the radio saying something about that.
Yeah, I already put that on there.
Yeah.
A little later than I said I would. That's why you should have sent me a text and not the radio. But
Do you happen to know if West Valley and Spokane is on there, the school?
I can check later. I try to go and review the board every so often and look at where the trips are and look through and make sure they're there. So I'm trying to keep up on them. But if you guys, those trip drivers who know, if you can know, hey, I got one coming up, log into 3522, see if you can find it maybe the day before. Because that gives me a little bit more heads up time than like, hey, I leave in 5 minutes. And I've done those. I've had Clark Ford call me and say, hey, I leave in 5 minutes, can you add this? Luckily I was at home, so I could do it from my home computer. Paperwork. All paperwork must be completed. You want to keep any receipts for food with the name and group, with your name and the group and the destination on it. All paperwork is turned into dispatch. Also remember, appearance-wise, you're representing us as a school district, so keep that in mind when you dress and dress appropriately for wherever you're going. If you're going to a golf course, maybe think about what you're wearing versus, say, Pine Street Woods or a cross-country meet in Lewiston. Kind of a different apparel that you're going to need for those. Driver's daily log. So if you go more than 150 air miles from here, you have to fill one out. Or now, if it's more than a 14-hour workday, you have to fill out a driver's daily log. Other than that, everything needs to go on a timesheet. And if you have questions about that, see me later. You can sit down one-on-one. And I can help you guys figure out timesheets or driver's daily logs if you need. Remember, your meals, baby, your meals may be reimbursable, so keep those receipts. And then you also need to know what kind of trip you're going on. We never put trip on the mileage sheet. Right? Right? It's competition, field, lease, or non. Non is the only one I ever have a hard time with, but we don't do many of those. So hopefully our fearless leader will let us know, or let those drivers know, hey, this is a non.
Do you guys know the difference between field and non? So the state reimburses field trips at 50%. If the field trip coincides with their curriculum, so they have to tie it to their curriculum to be reimbursed, and if it doesn't, then it's a non-reimbursable field trip. So, so if they want to go to the Canada, but it has nothing to do with their school, they're just going there to have a good time and watch, you know, a movie, then that would probably be a non. So that's the difference.
And the overnighters, like in the spring when they go stay at Shoshone or
I got a
Luther
question on
Haven
that. My wife, every once in a while, takes kids down to go to the theater. Well, that's a theater class is going to a theater. Would that be considered as?
It has to tie to a standard of teaching.
So if that's part of a class, is it part of a class or is it part of a program?
It's part of a class, but
Is it a drama class or a teaching class that's a graded class that has a curriculum? If it can be tied to that curriculum, then yes, it would be 50% reimbursable.
Need my permission? Oh, no. He needs his permission. Here's some examples of our field trip paperwork. So we have our small colored stuff. It's all in the filing cabinet. It's in dispatch. And so it's going to have date, school, group, leave time, all that fun stuff all filled out. I almost never fill out this part for sub driver because usually we'll know if you need a sub. So, and then here's the evacuation procedure, which is found over here in the white bin. Part of doing a field trip is we are supposed to be telling the passengers all this stuff. Like I call it the flight attendant routine, pushing out how to use the air brake, secure the bus, open the emergency exits. It's all right here, and you can kind of follow that for doing your little pre-flight routine.
The other piece that you need is a roster. If something happens on that trip, we need to know who is or is not present on your bus.
Yeah, I want to make sure I get that in
So
these notes
when
too.
they give you the roster at the beginning of the trip, whether it's competition or field, they should update that before you leave so that you have a head count, because sometimes students will go home with parents or whatever, so please make sure you have that.
So it's supposed to be submitted with the sheet?
We don't necessarily keep them, but like I say, if something happens on your trip, we need to know who's on your bus.
Seasonal restrictions, so we all know about the weight limit. Well, we're not gonna be worrying about those for a couple months, but red flag means they're imminent, coming soon. Green flag or no flag means they're in place and we have to go by the reduced speed limit or the posted speed limit if it's less. I have to say that because of like Wellington Road out there in Hope is posted 25 and they put up one of these. So,
So back to your rosters, I used to always attach the trifold. Do you not want rosters attached to them when we're submitting them?
Trifold?
The blue sheet and the evacuation sheet and the roster sheet,
Yeah,
trifold?
turn it in, all of it.
Yes, you still want that?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
and then weight limits, we're exempt from them on state highways. So like going out to Spirit Lake and stuff, I've done that with the weight limit in place and driving close to the speed limit. It's like driving down the waves. So I ended up slowing down anyway, so.
But not county?
Not county roads, just state highways. So Highway 200, any of those, 95, 54, is that the one that's down there in Apple? Is that 54?
Yeah.
I don't know why I can never remember that number. I guess I just did. Good job. Good job. One last quick one real fast here and then we'll be done. Ooh, pushing that hour, aren't we? Tires. Should make sure we have the correct tire pressure in summer. With the heat, they can go a little bit higher. Keep an eye on your recaps. If you have them on your rear tires, the heat can sometimes cause the glue to separate. So if you're unsure, check with a mechanic, have them come out and take a look at it. Oil helps lubricate and keep the engine cool, so make sure your oil level is good. Same with coolant, make sure your coolant level is good. That was weird, that was random. For the driver, drinking plenty of water is something that's good in the hot weather. Sunglasses to protect your eyes. A hat can be good too to help keep the sun off you. Light colored, light, airy clothing can also be good in the summertime because as we know, the AC systems on our school buses are amazing and keep it at a nice brisk 62 degrees. It is, but this is driving environments. So just be mindful of that. Like I try not to wear my dark color clothing in the summertime. Students, I do occasionally allow them, usually let them sip water from their resealable cups in that hot weather so they don't run into problems with dehydration or overheat and heat exhaustion. Allow them to open up the windows for that airflow. Also, it's good to remind them that if they're wearing sweaters or hoodies, that maybe they should take them off while on the bus because it's going to get warm on there. And that's it. That's last month's.